destruction and environmental disruption. The accident of the universal scale seems to become the big factor somehow or other, too. By the way, will there be the thing that you heard words called the photon belt? The shocking contents which the human will meet with in near future are included in information about the photon belt to describe from now on. However, the information is restrictive, and there is it in the situation that cannot confirm that I am reliable because I yet take it up formally in the government and the mass media in country of any place including you. SA. However, among the people who are interested in the world of the high-dimensional wave motion, much information already flies and assume the situation of the crisis to extremely meet within the near future, and I feel various and seem to think about correspondence. Then, based on the knowledge that people studying a photon belt were able to know so far, I decide to introduce the influence that substance and it of the photon belt bring. Main references of the photon belt mystery. Reset. Gaia. What is the photon? I have a property as the wave, an electromagnetic wave, with the photon about light energy at the same time to be a particle, and it is translated with a photon in the Japanese. The elements such as oxygen or the hydrogen being made of atoms, as you know. There is the atomic nucleus which there was in the center of this atom from a proton and a neutron, and an electron goes around the circumference. When the positron, that is this electron, and the antiparticle collides, I become extinct with the both sides, and it is known that 2 or 3 photons are born. There is the photon that came flying from the sun other than a generated photon in this way on the Earth. The photon of the enormous quantity that was generated by the fusion reaction of the sun inside is emitted toward the Earth, and the part reaches the surface of the Earth in the state of the particle while receiving absorption or dispersion of the Earth atmosphere. However, quantity of such a photon is not quantity, as I give particularly big influence when a human being lives a life at present on ground. However, there seems to be space full of a far superior photon in the space with the such small amount of quantity. The OB of the lump of this photon is called a photon belt. It was about 1961 in scientist poll that British astronomer Edmund Halley that was famous for the discovery of Halley's comet discovered existence with the photon belt, which made prophecy at the beginning of the 18th century first. Above Pleiades of the Taurus distance of 410 light-year as it from the Earth I can watch that the group of east stars pale in the sky rises at dusk of the autumn beginning. I am called Subaru in our country, and it has got close for a long time. Then, Space University Map, publication by when it investigated Pleiades with a man-made satellite. It was an opportunity that I found the nebula which glistened with golden light in a neighborhood of a star cluster. Most of the mass is not usually accepted because the nebula is made of gas and cosmic dust. However, mass was accepted in this nebula by being surprised. This was the discovery of the beginning of the photon belt. Because a photon is not visible light, I cannot observe it by the naked eye. I can begin it after having photographed it with strong many aspects color spectroscope by working to be optic. It is about December 1996 that the figure which was light blue was photographed by Hubble Space Telescope. Above, a photon belt, on December 20, 1996, Hubble Space Telescope succeeded in the photography of the photon belt. A net seems to have hung over Pegasus seat, the Menkali non-star direction slightly. Engineering processing is given to make it easy to see it by the naked eye. I copy it, then reset. This photon belt becomes it in the shape of a donut somehow or other in Milky Way galaxy, and there is it. It is written for the work of Watanabe that the solar system going around the Milky Way by a period of 26,000 years will pass there in a belt full of the photon every 11,000 years, whether it is entering 2,000 years. That means, naturally I will go in and out of the Earth in a photon belt by the same period. In the range that I examine, I become about 200 million years in time when the Sun goes around a galaxy, and there is only reference space written by Fuquin Canciodin, the point where I am not equal to that Watanabe speaks it. I will add a revision later now in this connection because I am investigating it. Above is the solar system Milky Way in the left. Records of winds and losses and nebulas can try to gather in the shape of a flat disk when they look from the Milky Way diagonal top where the solar system belongs to. Width makes 100,000 light-year, and width is 15,000 light-year. The solar system from a heart out of a thing of the Milky Way of 30,000 light-year I am located in distance. Top right corner, the figure where the upper section looked at a galaxy from the top. The figure where I looked at the lower berth from the side. Then, Space University map, influence of a Trollin belt. Then on Earth what kind of change will happen when the Earth enters in photon belt. Trollin is a particle of light born by physical collapse of an electron and an anti-electron, a positron, as had mentioned before. But I am different from the light that we generally know, and it is electromagnetic wave energy to have number of vibrations of many dimensions. Therefore, it is said to what will come under Sirius at the very beginning influence when it was exposed to a large quantity of photons that the influence that is the most serious in geomagnetism and the magnetosphere of the Earth is decrease of a geomagnetic field. Since 1829, an exact measurement value of geomagnetism, a magnetic field, that has been performed on a scale of all Earth clarifies that geomagnetism decreases year by year. But in late years the rate of decline extremely rises, and it is said to it whether it is a factor that the Earth approached a Trollin belt, which announces a prediction to be very likely to be at why geomagnetism becomes a zero. As for the Dr. American geophysicist J.M. Harwood and S. Mallon, doctors investigating the decreased situation of geomagnetism in about 2030. It is nothing but that a magnetic field of the Earth becomes extinct, that geomagnetism becomes beginning. Therefore, it must be life activity of the animals and plants living on ground that a big hindrance occurs. I will know the one that looked at a shown movie core recently what kind of thing it is. When magnetism begins to decrease by a movie, a patient of an artificial heart dies in sequence, and a dove concerned within a magnetic compass in a direction loses a sense of place, and a collision dying scene appears to a building and a car in large quantities. Furthermore, as extinction of a magnetic field advances, Van Allen belt surrounding the Earth begins to become extinct, and a state of nakedness appears from pouring harmful solar wind and cosmic rays on ground. It is right the arrival of the critical situation to threaten survival of the animals and plants which were able to include the human. The influence is not a limited thing only to the animals and plants. I will give big influence to the Earth itself. As a result, volcanic activity and an earthquake become active, and it is thought that the dissolution of an iceberg and a violent change of an ocean current occur, but in fact such changes begin to be frequent in many parts of the world. As for the accidents such as abnormal weather occurring in the face of the Earth in these days, that an encounter with a Trollin belt is the greatest factor is thought to be think about a point said to that it is the front and back time for spring. 1987 that the solar system including the Earth has begun to enter in this huge donut-shaped belt. There seems to be a thing getting away in several days and several months after having entered at the first encounter stage once, even if the photon belt says form of belt because the circumference becomes notched, and the state that I appear for a while and perform seems to continue. It is said that I do not need to get away for 2,000 years after the solar system gradually advances to the center of the photon belt, according to Watanabe deferred Akira, who introduced the substance of the photon belt to Japan by the mystery of the photon belt for the first time after this. And having completely entered into a photon belt in a solstice in winter, 2012, That means the ground animals and plants will seem to undergo a global violent change now after the back in about 8. It is end of the fourth world that a calendar shows for a long term of the Maya whom I spoke on previous work, Mystery Many Planet Earth, and done December 23, 2012 that I remember at winter solstice of December 2012. The Maya knew the encounter time with the photon belt well if it is the reader who had my book, Mystery Many Planet Earth, read. It is already known like comprehension that the Maya maintained wonderful knowledge about astronomy and a calendar. At first it is minute knowledge about the revolution speed of the Earth that I am surprised. With the Maya calendar, revolution speed of the Earth that is the length of 1 year is as 365.2420 days, and there is the error with the latest correct numerical value only for 0.0002 day, and this numerical value is then the Gregorian calendar that we use now smaller. I had surprisingly minute numerical value about not only it but also time when the moon went around the Earth and the synodic period with the Venus. In addition, I was able to expect a former solar eclipse in the astronomy of Maya precisely for 33 years, and 400 light-year were familiar with remote Pleiades and movement of far-off stars such as Gemini as well as familiar planets such as Mars or the Venus. The Maya may have known the existence of the photon belt and the time of the encounter with it well when I thought about these. It is the existence of the wonderful long-term calendar which they had in recognition of the Big Switch Day, December 23, 2012, of the history to support it. Maya had a solar calendar of 365 days and 2 calendars of the calendar of 260 days, and they had a calendar for a long term to assume the 25,640 years when I put 2 together a cycle of the history. There will be it now for the cycle of the last of the 5128 unit that divided 5 equally for 25,640 years, and, according to it. As for beginning for this the 5th cycle, as for being over, it is it with December 23, 2012 on August 11th, BC 3114. Will not the reason be at all because it took maintenance, the arrival on December 23, 2012, when it is nothing but it into consideration with the calendar of the period when it is tall and stout when there is not it when it should be needed in the sense of the times that they lived for. I cannot help so but think, but how will the reader seem? The accident of the solar system that has already begun by the way. As for the encounter with the photon belt, which Watanabe insists on and the influence, it is reliable his simple guess and I take it, and not to appear. Because the reason is because it is confirmed that the influence that is remarkable in the planet has already occurred including the Sun. It is Pluto to go around the outside most among 9 planets of the solar system, but I am big and change because the track is a long oval whereof the oval circle distance with the Sun is located in. For about 100 years of these days, the Pluto went away from the Sun, and it has been thought that chilliness advanced. However, curiously, according to the study of James Elliott of Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a warming phenomenon same as the Earth is taking place somehow or other in the Pluto. Furthermore, it is confirmed that atmospheric pressure increases 300% in these 13 years. In Neptune over the one inside, it is confirmed that temperature of satellite Triton rose 5%. In addition, it is thought that a pole shift, Earth's axis movement, may have happened because a spot called Eyes of the Uranus moved. About the pole shift, the possibility that the same phenomenon occurred in not only Neptune but also the Uranus is whispered. In addition, the change that, in addition, is dramatic on Saturn and Jupiter of the closeness, Mars seems to be taking place. At first the strength of the magnetic field compares it in 1960 and increases twice as much at the same time as brightness and temperature become higher on the Saturn and the Venus, and a red irregularity is shrinking on the Jupiter. In addition, I understood that a layer of the atmosphere of the satellite Titan rocket of the Saturn thickened 10 to 15% than the result that I observed in space probe Voyager 1 of NASA in 1980 by recent observation. Furthermore, on Mars, the North Pole and the ice of the South Pole begin to melt rapidly, and a magnetic field becomes strong, and the atmosphere seems to be returning. I am mystery why a magnetic field becomes strong for objection on the other planets with the Earth. The influence that the change of these planets gives to the Earth does not seem to be yet remarkable, but a problem is a solar change. A big accident is taking place in the Sun where it seems that I entered into a photon belt a little early. The solar sunspot repeats the greatest period and the minimum period by a period of about 11. But in late years the sunspot activity that I put a period in 11 away and should calm tends to activate it more without declining at all and can surprise an astronomer. In addition, various accidents seem to be taking place in the Sun, but the changes of the strength and weakness of the magnetic field begin to give a human being and the animals and plants that these accidents inhabit Earth and their big influence. The researcher of the photon belt thinks that it is an appearance example of aurora such as large blackout or Hokkaido of USA/Canada by the recent solar flare explosion. Watanabe introduces some latest data to show the Earth-size accident which USA and a Russian scientist and expert report in Reset Gaia publication in. As for the volcanic activity, 500% increase at the Earth hole since 1975, 2. As for the seismic activity, 400% increase at the Earth hole since 1973, 2. From 1963 between 1993 every disaster, a typhoon and a hurricane, a flood, a tsunami, on the Earth as for 410% increases. The human who does ascension, by the way, what kind of form will the influence on human being with the photon belt appear in? In other words, I am not sick, but it is said that it is to be in condition that it seems to be an instability syndrome, the symptom that lassitude, a back-set ache, chest to strangely at the very beginning though mind and body are healthy as for the symptom to appear together. Furthermore, it is said that the symptoms such as a muscular pain and arthralgia, convulsions, are easy to come to get up in symptom and dizziness, hard heartbeat, dyspnea, headache, it which resembled influenza when a situation progresses. However, the greatest change is influence on arrangement of the DNA in the cell. But the change at such a gene level to occur brings a big plus for the human because a photon is high-dimensional electromagnetic wave energy. Double helix structure of the DNA. The human gene should originally consist of 12 spirals. However, actually only a gene of the double helix structure was discovered. In USA, a genetic child of 3-spiral structure was discovered. Will they be people becoming a pioneer of the new human? The DNA of the H. sapiens originally consists of 12 spirals, but then which we know becomes a double helix without actually only 2 of them of those being used. Therefore, what the many organs of the internal organs cannot use 10% of the original ability as including a brain is said to the human on the Earth. However, gene one of the many children are usually discovered more recently in USA, and, according to the report of Watanabe, it is said that I understood that these children have immunity for every disease by nature. Thereafter the scholar of American gene seems to devote to search for child having 12 spirals. They seem to think about the change of the gene structure by the encounter with the photon belt seriously somehow or other. It is reason same as cooking in the microwave oven changing a form into the figure by the irradiation of the microwave without changing it, that the conversion of the gene level happens to every living entity including a human being by entering the space full of a photon. A DNA molecule is programmed again by high energy, and the high spirituality which the body and the soul body have did as a person. and the human being who exposed the body in a photon range wrapped in a high-dimensional photon transforms it. When it is after 2012 when the Earth completely enters into a photon belt, somehow or other, I will seem to accomplish a change to the existence that there is knotted with H. sapiens, because a dimension rises from the 3 dimensions to the world of 4 dimensions or 5 dimensions, while H. sapiens is H. sapiens. From ancient times, many exercisers do much severe asceticism/penance for including Buddha. But there is not such a story that I am thankful for if I can have a glimpse of the high-dimensional world by a dimension rise when I do the serious ascetic practices that I did so by being in the photon belt. But the problem gets over the large violent changes such as environment change or the abnormal weather which occur before the change of the field of such plus is brought by the human, and how much people are points weather can live long enough. I speak coming by the various prophecy including Holy Mother prophecy as follows. It is since today's civilization began, and the crimson cloud which is ablaze like blood crosses the sky, and a roar of the thunder lets the ground vibrate. If fire of the sulfur poured, if I climbed the high place and would jump into the sea, in there, the boiling water which boiled bubbled. While I continue watching this, fear and scene of the shiver, unfolding before eyes, it is said that exclamation did not need to break off from a mouth of people of visual hallucination. It is said to be only a 1/3 of the human, a 1/10 that people of visual hallucination survive, as living things envy a dead person, and this to express. If an encounter with the photon belt will happen in the near future, so that Watanabe insists, the situation that many kinds pass away from the world of the animals and plants may not be avoided, including the human. An encounter with the photon belt seems to be a duet of a great commanding officer during the time of the Ritsurio legal codes, hardship, and the joy for the human somehow or other. Great outbreak in the later. I accomplish the transformation of the gene level and become the new human, and will there be you in people confronting Earth reproduction then? Or, with a divine figure of the new life, Earth, will you look on from Takami on the sky,